First of all, Lord, we want to thank you, Lord Jesus, for this opportunity to be in this place. We thank you for these that you have put into this particular ministry, Lord God, as the city council and the mayor. And we ask you to minister to their lives, Lord God. Lord, let everything that is done, God, done with their heart and mind towards you, that you might be glorified in everything that is done in this city, in this town, Lord God, for your glory and honor. Thank you for your love and blessings toward us in all of the situations that arise, God. We pray, God, that we would always pray first and allow you to work on our behalf. And we're going to give you praise, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I move on to the approval of the events from our last meeting, I think I've lost count of how many of the leadership lounge are out in our audience right now. They would all stand, please. That's almost all that remain. Be sure to tell your classmates they only got one meeting in November. Thank you all very much. Thank you for the interest in our community.
City Council regular meeting from October 6th. You've had time to look over the minutes from that meeting. Council, any changes to that? Any additions or deletions? Seeing none, minutes are approved by acclamation. We'll move on to item 3, bids, contracts, agreements, and expenditures. Consideration of bids to purchase a bucket lift truck for the engineering department. Ben O'Dowd, our city engineer, will present. Ben, how you doing?
Doing well. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The traffic division of the engineering department is seeking to replace one of our traffic sign and signal maintenance bucket trucks. The truck in question is vehicle number 1748. It's a year 2000 Ford F-350. It has 75,000 miles on it, but these trucks run continuously while they're on the job site, so that doesn't truly reflect the wear and tear that's on this vehicle. It is aged, and it is beginning to become a safety concern for my staff, and so we're seeking to replace it. We've allocated in this year's budget $90,000 for this vehicle, and again, what we're facing on all fronts is shortages and long lead times. We've sought alternatives for this particular vehicle, and we're seeing lead times upwards of 18 to 24 months for comparable prices. Thankfully, we were able to find a vehicle via the Georgia State contract price through Akins Ford in Winder, Georgia for $162,700. This vehicle is available immediately. They're currently holding it for us. We have the option to purchase this vehicle. I would recommend that we purchase this vehicle. And I'm here to answer any questions you have about this vehicle.
Council, any questions for Ben? Ben, thank you. Council, it's yours for action.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the bid for $162,700 for the bucket lift truck.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments other than ouch?
Yep.
All in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, Council. Move on to local funding and requests. Item A, consideration of a request to approve the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funding for the Small Business Grant Program allocation. Christy Moore, Valdosta Lowndes County Chamber of Commerce, Dwayne Johnson, our Black Business Alliance representative, will present. Welcome to the meeting, and thank you for your hard work on this matter.
Thank you. All right, as already spoken, my name is Dwayne Johnson, and this is Christy Moore. We're here to report out, thank you, on the ARPA Small Business Grant Proposal. All right, thank you. All right, I'm just going along with the slides that you can see there. Our committee was appointed by the City Council a while back, and just to go over our gracious participants of the council, of the committee, as follows: Nick Harden, Stephen Hedden, Dwayne Johnson, Chris Jones, Christy Moore, Nick Perry, Justin Purvis, Rico Ramsey, Katrina Sermons, Miguel Vicente, and Carla Walker. We wanted to just kind of give you a rundown or a repeat of how we got here today. We started out with the following process. The committee met twice thus far and created an application for the consumers of the grant to be able to submit. The goal here was really to create a fair, accessible, and easy process. And I think very much that we accomplished that with the help of the committee, which was its greatest intent. We did get to a point where we got an opportunity to send out these lovely postcards to every individual business that is a Valdosta City business license holder. Applications were finally sent out on or went live on the city website on September 7th. Regarding the process, we first had a pre-application review period that lasted from September 6th through September 21st. And that gave applicants an opportunity to submit their application for review and feedback at no risk to them. It's very, very helpful. 157 applicants took advantage of that, which was a great opportunity. Then we held 2 town hall info sessions where more than 150 attendees got a chance to hear about this process that we're going over today. Those were held on September 13th and September 14th. And then finally, the application period for final review and submission was conducted on September 26th through October 17th, which just passed. I'll turn it over to Christy.
Thank you. As Dwayne mentioned, we really worked through as a committee to make sure that we were making this as fair and accessible as possible across the city of Valdosta. Part of that, I will say, y'all know these are ARPA funds. They're coming from the feds. They have their own regulations that, of course, we're keeping it legal, don't worry. We made sure that we followed their criteria. So some of this is not that our committee chose this way, but this is kind of the way the federal government dictates in terms of making priorities. So our funding criteria, you see on the left side, our tier 1 was in the qualified census tract, and also they had to be minority, women, or veteran-owned business-wise. The tier 2 was just in the qualified census tract. Tier 3 would have been minority, woman, or veteran-owned. They're still in the city, just not in the qualified census tract. And then tier 4 would be everyone else. So that means they're in the city, but they're not qualified census tract, and they're not woman and veteran-owned. I know there were a lot of questions about why the qualified census tract. That came from the feds. Yes, we know it is an arbitrary, it feels arbitrary to everyone here. It does not follow, the City of Valdosta guideline. It doesn't follow anything specific. But that's what the feds suggested, and so that is why we followed it. You can see on the right side, I'm sorry that print is a little small. I apologize for that. But you can see the breakdown that we were saying they would qualify. This is gross receipts, and it's important to note that that's receipts, not net income. So we allowed them to use whatever the best year, 2019, 2020, or 2021, for gross receipts. You can see the breakdown, and they did have to show proof of that, of course, to see they were eligible for a maximum grant anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000. And then one thing I'm very proud of with that kind of review period, that we had so many people apply, and I will say out of those, I think we had one application that was perfect. So I do think that was really important and helped people just take that time and feel a little more reassured through the process. But you can see here's a breakdown of our applications. In total, we received 234, and you can see absolutely the biggest group was the qualified census tract and minority, woman, and veteran-owned business, and that's 108 of those. Also, I just realized that you can see the numbers, it's 77 and 21. They got mixed up on a line. So, we're coming to you tonight on behalf of the committee to ask you to consider giving more than the $1 million that you already gave ARPA for small business. And we understand that as a committee, we really had no idea what the response would be. The only really experience anyone had had to that point was the nonprofits, which their application process was very different. This is a reimbursable grant, and we did include a copy of the application behind the presentation in case you had questions about it. But this wasn't, you didn't have to tell us what you were going to do with the money. We wanted it to be as objective as possible. If you met the criteria, great. We didn't want anyone to have to put a value judgment on whether your business is more important than your business. We didn't want that. But you can see we came up with, if everyone was funded at the level that they requested, it would be $4.23 million. In a positive note, that means we got the word out. And our business community is very interested in what the city's doing, and they've worked hard. So I do think that's a good way to look at it. And then we've got, and you can see the breakdown. That's option one. We would love to have an extra $3 million. We also recognize that's probably not realistic, but we did want you to see that part.
Sure. Option two actually allows us to fund fully Tier 1, which is the, as we call it, the first bucket. Tier 2 also would be fully funded under this option as well. The numbers fall out for those two numbers as roughly over $2 million for Tier 1, and then at $600,000 at Tier 2. Then at that point, we got a little creative to basically try to lower the cost to the city in that case. Tier 3 would be $2,500 each, and of course, Tier 4, as you can see, at $1,000. That would be a proposed total of $2.88 million.
And another option, which we can get creative as a committee and come up with other options. We're grateful for any dollar that you give this committee. But another option would be to fully fund Tier 1, and then the next three tiers break down to Tier 2, $5,000 each, Tier 3, the $2,500, and Tier 4, $1,000 each. One thing we would like y'all to consider is we absolutely could do, you've got $1 million, it's going to be eaten up by probably 40 businesses if we do that. The first, they're going to be qualified census tract and minority women, veteran owned. It's going to be 40 people, and that will be it. But if we could approach it with one of these creative approaches, we'll have an ability to still impact the majority of businesses that did apply and were eligible. And I wouldn't presume to know what it's like to sit in your seats, but I do know that y'all really value your business community, particularly those. What's important to note with these is they stayed open throughout the pandemic. They kept their employees. They did the things, they made the hard decisions, and they really kept our community going. So this is a way that we could still impact everyone. It might be a smaller scale, but I work with these businesses all the time, and they're not going to turn down any amount of money, is what I'll tell you. So that's just something, we're happy to answer any questions. We really want to come to you with gratitude for making the business community a priority. We're overwhelmed by the response that we've had. It's been great to work through our committee and hear the different perspectives. But we truly appreciate y'all making that a priority for our community.
Thank you again for the hard work. Stay close to the microphone. I'll let council ask a few questions. I just want to make you aware of what's going on next door currently. On Tuesday, we did the first of the minor home repair ARPA meetings. It's a kind of a workshop to tell everybody what the application process is. 65 people showed up at noon on Tuesday, and I bet there's that. And 100 applications did go out, thank you. About that same amount is showing up over there right now, concurrent to this meeting as well. And they were only allotted $350,000, so that's going to be an ask as well in just a few. So just to let you know what we're up against, not what you're up against, what we're up against as well. Council, any questions for either Dwayne or Christy?
Yeah, the 108, the number there for the QCT and that Tier 1 option, are how many of the, I mean, I guess the question is that it says maximum grant amount is 5, 10, 20, 30. So are y'all maxing out every 108? So if there's 20 of them, are they getting 5,000? And if there's 30 that meets the gross amount of 50 to 100, they getting the 10,000?
No, to answer the question, no. The way where we are kind of right now is that with the help of the finance department, we've been able to understand if everyone who submitted that is eligible at this point, if you were eligible for $5,000, that's what the total is on the following slides that you're referring to. But naturally, there may not be a one-to-one ratio of the receipts that match the ask.
Right.
So that value will likely go down. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, sir.
And
Thank
I
you.
do
Yeah.
think, I will say, the finance department's done an amazing job. Crystal has been great. Y'all should give her a round of applause because she really has been amazing. But I know they're still going through all the receipts, and so that certainly could lower the amount. But we do have a committee meeting on Monday where we have kind of agreed on a timeline. We're grateful for our 2 city council representatives who sit on the committee, so that we can get this done. The goal was to have checks out by the end of the year. We felt like we had been told we need to make this happen pretty quickly, and we did try to make it as quickly as possible. But I do think one thing you might be asking, Andy, is whether at that fully funded level, that does mean that everyone's receiving whatever their max, if their receipts match it.
Okay.
So, yes to that, but we will not be able to fully fund all the levels no matter what, unless y'all want to give us $4 million.
Can I see option, what option 1 was? I think it's option 1 and 3 I have.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, maybe that's not the one. Let's go to option 2. That's what I was looking at, option 2, where you said tier 1 and 2, where they would be fully funded, and I think you had something about that, because for that amount, tier 1 and 2 was something like a 5 or 10,000, something like that. So, but you're saying if their receipts match that full amount, then they can get that full amount for that tier.
And I will say the majority of businesses, if they were eligible for $10,000, they found $10,000 to submit receipts, but there were some that might have submitted $8,500. So we're certainly not going to fund more than the receipts that they submitted. That's part of, a federal requirement is to have that reimbursement side. But the option 2 would fund everyone in that qualified census tract. And the federal government assumes that if your business is in the qualified census tract, that you are already at a disadvantage.
Okay. And one other thing I heard you say something about, you say that it was a reimbursable grant?
Yes, so something that's very different than the nonprofit was you did have to submit receipts for items that you spent money on already. So it could have been anywhere from July 1st of 2020 until basically whenever they submitted. And if there were specific areas based on the federal grant. Most people used mortgage and utilities. For most businesses, whatever their max was, they had spent enough on space or utilities. Honestly, many of them just on utilities had spent their max. And that, because the federal government did already have PPP to help with payroll, but there has really not been anything to help specifically the way that this grant is structured.
Okay.
Council, any further questions, Tim?
Well, I think it's important to make sure everybody understands that what the committee is trying to do is find out what amount of money, if any, that council would allocate in addition to the 1 million. Once they have that number, whatever that number ends up being, they then can go, okay, here's how much we have to work with, and this is how we feel best it needs to be divided out. Obviously with the understanding that, you know, Tier 1's obviously a priority. It would love to be able to fund Tier 1 and Tier 2 in particular, but there is the realization that, you know, that we can't allocate that much money towards it. So once they have that total number, they'll follow up Monday and meet, and then they will begin drafting the list and how much each business is going to be eligible for, and they'll bring that back to us at our first meeting next month. We'll have a work session to take a look at it, work session to have a presentation on it, and then we will have that list to vote on at our November 10th meeting, and right after that, checks can start going out to these small businesses and getting them some help. So that's where we're at with this.
I have one other question too, and I guess, Mark, were you about to say something? I was going to say, if we do allocate it, because I remember well on our list when we were allocating a certain amount of monies and so much for the small business and everything like that, because I remember very well, I said, is this written in stone, this amount that we will allocate to them? And the question came up that it was not, but we had allocated all the funding that we had. So who do I ask the question?
Yeah, we are fully allocated our 16.2, but as we've discussed before, that's not set in stone. We can reallocate as projects need more, or maybe a project's going to be less than we anticipated as well. So we can continue to reallocate to the full $16.2 million it's gone. So there is room for reallocation to other projects on the list that we have. It was not set in stone. That was just our starting point to get going with. So
they were asking for 1,500. Can't we just give them a full 1,500,000?
Great question. I knew you were going to ask me
I
that.
don't think I give them two. I thought they needed more anyway.
In your agenda packet, just for a starting point, since I just wanted to get to a starting point, I asked for an additional $1,550,000.
Correct.
That would fully fund tiers 1 and 2. Is why that was our starting point, because that's the spirit and the intent of the ARPA law. So I thought that would be a good starting point to fully fund the first 2 buckets, and that's about $1,550,000 with a little left, maybe even a little more than that once we finish the whole, get all the applications processed. So that's how I came up with $1,550,000.
Any further questions, Council?
Well, I think to make sure every member of council understands that currently if we were to agree to 1.5, that's going to come from the allocation we made for the train project down here on Griffin Avenue or Savannah Avenue.
Well, it's not just that, it's also the fact that we've had several other requests as well, such as the housing that's now come up that we didn't realize we was going to have as many folks to come in and put applications in for. And, I mean, at that amount, I mean...
You'll have the food bank back before you here very soon.
Yeah, you got the food bank back before us. So, I mean, there's several things that we're going to pull from that pot.
Right.
I mean, I'm fine with giving an additional $1 million, with knowing, as far as like the other things that we have going on that's coming out. I mean, we're limited in that pot.
Yes, we are.
That's for the train. I mean, we are.
I heard you. I hear you saying we're limited, but I know I heard something that we have extra money that we could do. I did hear
but remember that this project doesn't stand alone by itself. There are everything we mentioned and more coming back at us. So.
And we've already helped some of those already, so they're coming back and getting us. Okay.
Yep.
But I still think we should allocate $2 million.
Right. So, Mark, are you asking for a motion tonight on this 1.5?
Yes.
Or do y'all want to?
You got lots.
What are y'all asking?
You got options to stand pat, or you can come up with a number and move forward with that.
But we don't want to stand pat because that leaves them in limbo.
Correct.
So we need to make. Are you asking us for a decision tonight?
Yes.
I think we'd prefer a decision tonight so the
Okay.
committee can get back to work once again. Yes, sir.
All right. Council, any further discussion or questions for the two? Well, let's put it this way. Any further questions for the 2 people standing?
So what we're making a decision for tonight is to go ahead on so that they can move on.
Any further questions for the 2 standing in front of us?
I do. I have a question. If we make a decision tonight on this, then that means y'all go ahead on and move forward with getting, I guess, getting ready to allocate the amount to the people. Do you already have candidates that you know who you're going to apply how much money to them already? Do you have the applicants?
I mean, quite frankly, we spent like the last hour and a half the day before coming up with this allocation proposal. So what we'll need to do is based on the number that is given to us, we'll need to come up with how that's allocated based on, the numbers that we came up today, with the intent, as usual, to fully fund tier 1 and then how the remaining impacts the rest of the tiers.
And also, all of the applications are already submitted, so we certainly will do our best. And one thing I would mention is Tier 3. I know that that wasn't in the QCT, but we're still talking about our minority women veteran-owned businesses. There are many of them that are literally across the street from the QCT that I think if we all drove down those roads, would say they're just as disadvantaged as the ones on the other side. They just had luck of the draw. So that's why, as we looked at these numbers, it was important for us to try to do something for that Tier 3.
So when are you planning on cutting the checks?
Check? No, I'm just kidding. We're hoping to meet on Monday as a committee. We were already planning to meet on Monday to decide whatever allocation y'all decide tonight. We'll talk through the different scenarios that the committee could decide. We would then have to bring it back before City Council with the final numbers where that wouldn't change the number. That would just get your final approval, just like you had to get final approval for the nonprofit.
You'd actually have the list of allotment on that thing too.
Yes, so that would be end of November. We'd come to you at the beginning of November, so I would imagine checks would be cut by the end of November.
That week?
You have busy staff. I'm not going to put that pressure on them.
All right, any further questions for the two presenters? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I know Nick's out there too. Thank you guys for the hard work in this committee. All right, Council, it's yours for action.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that you take the city manager's request for 1.550.
I have a motion. Failure to second, I'll entertain another motion.
Mr. Mayor, I really wanted to second Eric's motion. You just don't know how bad I wanted to second that motion. But in all fairness, I know the rehab project's going to need some additional funding. A lot of folks out there that, have leaky roofs and falling down porches, et cetera, and that I don't want to be greedy, but I am a member of the Small Business ARPA Committee, and I would have loved to have said, let's give them $4 million. But in knowing that we need to have some money available for other projects and to play fair with those projects, I'd like to make a motion for $1 million in additional funding.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Any further discussion? All in favor, show of hands. 2 in favor. You do this, aren't you? All in opposition? Tie-breaking vote to me, motion passes. Thank you. Good luck with the money. I was hoping for 5 of you here tonight.
May get paid the big bucks, Mayor.
All right, item 5, citizens to be heard. Portion of the meeting, we ask you come forward to state your name and address so that we can have it for the record. Our policy requires you stay under 3 minutes so that others have time to be heard. Please direct all comments to council as a whole and do not attempt to engage individual members of council in debate. It is the council's policy to immediately follow up with you and your concern. Additionally, we ask that any groups that want to address the council designate one spokesperson to represent the group, again, to ensure that all have time to be heard. And having said that, do we have any citizens to be heard here tonight?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm John Robinson of 3227 Changeling Circle of Lake Park. I presented the council with a letter that I feel is necessary to be presented here. I'm just going to read a couple of the paragraphs because I don't really have the time for the 3 minutes to elaborate on what I need to talk about. Why does the black community experience loneliness of being exiled due to the lack of economic justice? The arm of economic prosperity have never stretched to the black community. Therefore, we as a community are asking you as mayor and council to ask the advocate of the United States federal government for helping in correcting decades of injustices. We are asking for funds to restore, to revitalize Valdosta South Side. This letter is written for Straight Talk, I'm not going to get into everything on this letter, but this letter is based upon your own findings from your analysis of impediments. The problems that have existed in this city for quite some time, and no one seemed to act as if they want to really address it. From your own analysis of impediments, it says, the date of the table shows the moderate income classes of income with the highest number of households for whites were 60,000 to $124,999 income class, and 20% of whites were income in this range. Most frequently reported, the income of African American households are less than $10,000 to $19,000 range, and 40% of African Americans is in this range. This seems to be part of the major problem. And then it reads in the next paragraph, it says that $46,602 for white households, where $23,452 for the African American households, virtually cut in half. Our children are murdering each other on the street because of the poverty that's being promoted here in the city, because of the lack of economic equality. We have a tremendous problem here, and this problem needs to be dealt with, and you as a collaborative body is the one that can make the decisions to make this happen. I know what I say is here. Sometimes you may not take me very seriously, but I want to explain something. I was the lead plaintiff in a civil litigation that lasted 12 long years. Manuel Noriega was in the basement during the trial. I had Dennis Garcia and Scarola, the owner of the island of Malta, as my attorney. I had...
Mr. Robinson, we'll follow up with you afterward.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
That's the problem here.
Are there any other citizens to be heard at this time?
Good evening. My name is Gracie Bacon. I live on 708 Holly Drive, Valdosta. And this is Donna Head, and she lives on Holly Drive too. We have a problem. We still got the junkyard. It's worse than ever. But we have another problem, and I don't know how you all are going to address this problem. We have a man at 701 Holly Drive. He's not renting the whole house. He's renting rooms in the house. He has signs outside. It's not something I'm making up. There are signs outside advertising that you can rent a room just like you could at Holiday Inn. And in this house, this is a residential area. This is a family-oriented community. This is not, you can rent a motel on Holly Drive. But he has put up the signs. If you drive by Holly Drive today, they're out there. 701, you don't have to get off of Lee Street. He's got big old signs, rooms for rent. He's got all that junk right out there. So I'm not making that up. It's there. Also, Holly Drive has become a speed trap. You know, everybody just race through and go on over to the next street. We have a lot of children on that street, and people are going through there going 80 and 90 miles an hour. We need some speed bumps on that street, you know, because what we've allowed to happen, one person come in, do illegal stuff, you're inviting a crowd in. You all let it go. So the man now says he's doing it down the street. Let's go ahead and make us a room in the house. So this man is renting a house, renting rooms. He's not renting the whole house. He's renting rooms. He can't keep tenants. They leave in 2 or 3 months. But now he decided to rent rooms. I don't know about you, but I don't think we should be renting rooms in a residential neighborhood for families. If he's going to rent anything, rent the whole house. But that's not what he's doing. And it's not cheap what he's doing. So he's going to make a lot of money. And I just want to know if Valdosta City is going to get some of that taxes, since he's running a rooming house. on Holly Drive. And why do they have to follow codes? She's got a daycare. We got a personal care home on that street. They had to follow the codes for the city and the state. Why doesn't he have to follow any codes? Why aren't you all down there saying, where are your fire things? Where are your handicap ramps? Where's your lighting? Where's your electrical system? But you all are not down there. This man is right there facing Lee Street. You don't have to turn on Holly Drive. He's got it right there in your faces. So I know you've seen it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Are there any other citizens to be heard tonight? Hello.
Hi. Okay. So my name is Robin Phillips Brown. I live over by Inner Perimeter. And I know I'm not a Valdosta native, but I moved down here in 2009 because my high school, we always used to come down and get beat by Lounge. So one thing they tell you in orientation is we want you to stay in Valdosta. We want you to start a family, start a business. We don't want you to go back home. We want you to stay in Valdosta. And I have a cleaning company based out of Atlanta, and I also do taxes down here. But the issue is that, and also so you can know, from 2009 up until now, I've lived in Valdosta moved back and forth about 3 times. So I actually decided in August 2020, during the pandemic, I want to stay down here in Valdosta, grow my business. But the thing is that there's not a lot of resources for small business owners. The main issue that I'm having, because I do taxes. So, when you do taxes, it's different, in Atlanta, and I completely get it. I want to be down here for a reason, but the people who own the commercial properties, they do not upkeep the properties. They're not priced at a fair value. They tell you all these things. We'll have the property ready in 3 weeks. Then you finally call them, it's 3 months. Then they want you to do all these other repairs. And it's like, okay, as a small business owner, that's not fair. And the thing, I'm not going to say it's not fair, but it's just like, how am I really supposed to grow? And the thing is that I'm friends with other councilmen, congressmen in Atlanta. They've invited me to come to their districts. I have one that's like, I'll help you for 3 years, you get what I'm saying, and just move your whole entire tax business. He knows I'm here in Valdosta. He's like, move your whole business to my district, and I'll give you whatever it is that you need, the resources, you need a decent space, you need help paying for the business license. He's like, I'll pay for all of that. Just move to my district. And it's like, I don't want to move there. You get what I'm saying? I don't want to leave Valdosta, but at this point, it's kind of like probably another 2 years. If I can't find something reasonable, I'm going to be forced to move to his district because I don't get any help, or there's no one enforcing the people who own all these commercial properties to upkeep their property. And one thing, since I do taxes, there's a whole strip of empty buildings. And technically, y'all could be making money. I watch the city council meetings, and it's like the city is losing money. They can't find money. And it's like, if y'all would enforce these people to do something to their properties, you could get someone like me in, to basically pay taxes, to help with the Georgia State Patrol pension, to help with just other things. So that's just all I want to say. There's not a lot of resources for small business owners. Robin. It's very difficult.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizens wishing to be heard?
George Buster Ryan, 5004 Oak Drive, Valdosta, Georgia. I want to thank you all for serving the people. People come up here tonight and they bring their issues before the elected officials. I really didn't have nothing to say tonight, but I had 2 people that tell me, or they asked me, Ryan, why don't you bring up about the water fountain at Martin Luther King? I said, I did that 2 years ago. And there's no water, the water fountain still don't work. And a young lady here, she been up here before talking about her issue. And I just want you all to think about something. Valdosta is in the limelight. The Valdosta Daily Times may not, or the TV stations and radio may not publish what is taken from the audience during citizen participation and put in the paper. I've been going to probably 20-some cities, and what citizens say at Citizen to be Heard, there's not one city I've been to where they don't put it in the paper. So at least the citizens know what their fellow citizens are saying. If that has nothing to do with you all, it may have something to do with our freedom of the press. So I just throwing that out. A lot of my videos is reaching worldwide. I don't go out to recruit news media to come interview me, but they are doing it. And I have to tell them the truth. About 3 months ago, there's a movie coming out. They interviewed me for 2.5, 3 hours, and I spoke the truth. Not so much about Valdosta because they wanted to know about equipment and equipment 10+2. But you may not think so, but a lot of eyes is on Valdosta. Valdosta is a growing city. So I'm just saying, let us listen to the complaints and the recommendations of the citizens. I've been talking about the flag on the courthouse for 9 years, and to fly in honor of our veterans. It's still not flying. And there's a lot of other places. I go across the state of Georgia doing what I do. And I only know of 2 counties, 2, that does not fly a Georgia state flag over the courthouse in honor of the military personnel. If the governor called and activate the National Guard Armory, that's the flag they'll be under. But they won't be under it over here, nor Atkinson County. But you go to any other, and there's other places in Valdosta. So personally, I have my own opinion why I think it's not flying and haven't flown in 9 years, because they did change the old Confederate flag. And there's a great possibility some people say, well, I'm never going to fly it. But y'all have a nice day. As I said, the eyes of this nation is focused on Valdosta. And they're going to interview people here, and I want the citizens to tell the truth, and I hope it will shine a light on all of us that we can be proud. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, George. Are there any other citizens wishing to be heard at this time? Seeing none, I'll close out that portion and turn it over to our city manager for city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody of our Festive Fall celebration next Thursday, October 27th at our beautiful Unity Park from 5:30 to 8:30. We've got a lot of great fun planned for families at Unity Park, so I invite everybody to come out and participate and have fun with the City of Valdosta. Witches Night Out downtown is also in downtown on October 27th, so we'll have several things happening downtown it seems to be happening that way more frequently these days, trying to get folks downtown. Had a successful collaborative effort with Lowndes County with the scrap tire event. Over 1,000 tires were brought in, and so that, less and less on the street and on abandoned properties that the young lady was speaking earlier about. So trying to make a difference there as well. Valdosta on Demand, the public participation plan is now available on the main page of the city website, so you can take a look at that. We've had, the mayor's mentioned this, we've had, after 5:30 today, we've had 2 successful town hall meetings for our minor rehab repair project. We had a great turnout earlier in the week, and Catherine, how many was over there tonight? 50. So we've had about 150 folks show up for this, so a great turnout for that, and I think that's going to be, again, as we've talked about earlier during the agenda part of the meeting, we're more than likely going to, as a body, be asking for a little allocation for that project as well. It's very popular. Puptober for Main Street is October 28th from 5 to 9. This is, again, where you dress your pet up, come downtown, have fun. I think there's some contests and things of that nature. The police and fire department had a great neighborhood walk this week. They walked in the University Knox Drive area in that part of town, and they had a great success with that. And I just want to remind, the fall electronic recycling event will be Saturday, November 19th from 8 to noon at our City Public Works Department. And I think I'll end my comments with that, Mayor.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you very much. There is a lot going on. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the United Way's Day of Caring is going to also descend on Unity Park just across the street. There will be about 140 volunteers there tomorrow morning that will go out to about a dozen of the umbrella agencies that fall under the United Way and go and help with minor repair with landscaping and paint and Some are going out to the Second Harvest Food Bank to sort food, and some are going over to the Boys and Girls Club to help out over there as well. So any other council comments tonight?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to thank Dwayne and Christy and the committee for the hard work they put into this opera, doing all the allocations. I know it's got to be hard to get all that together and figure out how the best way to do that. I echo like Tim said, I wish we could fully fund it, but with 4 or 5 other things that's going to be coming at us, you know, we are limited on what we can do, but I definitely glad we at least was able to give y'all $1 million, you know, more to help out that a little bit more. And thank you, council members, as well, for serving on that.
Yes, I would like to say something too. To the small businesses here in Valdosta, you are the backbone really of Valdosta. And some of us did try to get a little bit more help for you. But I do want you to realize that there were some, and I know you heard them, they're so concerned about the other entities. There are other funding as well to help the other entities that they're talking about as well. We were here, y'all were here talking, trying to get money and get support for the small businesses. And that's what we were supposed to be trying to talk and help about. These other entities, when they come up, or when there's something come up for them, we'll take care of that situation. But I want you to see, and I'm just here to say, because I think it's a travesty, that they are so concerned about others rather than our small businesses who are trying to survive, who are trying to stay alive, who are trying to do things. And yes, and I just want y'all to know, whether you know it or not, some of the names that I heard them say tonight, they didn't have the hard times during COVID, like some of our small businesses, but they got that big concern for them. Our small businesses are the backbone. Our small businesses are trying to survive. Our small businesses are trying to stay here, and they will be here. These other companies and these other ones, that's fine, that's good. I'm not taking from them, but I don't think anybody should take from our small businesses. We're trying to help them. I'm a council person for the city of Valdosta. I want our people to thrive. I want us to have businesses. I want people to be here. I hear this young lady saying somebody else wants her to come somewhere else because of what we are not providing. I'm a spokesperson for the citizens of Valdosta and the small businesses, and I just want to say I will still continue to fight for you, to try to help you get something to keep you here in Valdosta. And that's what I want to say.
Any other council comments at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I'm not going to be put on a pedestal that I'm not for small businesses. You know, I run a nonprofit organization myself, and when it came time to put in for the funding, I didn't even put in for it. I asked my board not to so we can take the money to allocate it to other people. It's not the fact that I'm not for small businesses, and for you to say that to act like us council members have no concern for small business is really, to me, concerning, especially when the fact that what we're doing is trying to make sure that we don't over-allocate our money so we can help out Second Harvest. So what you're saying is the Second Harvest is not important. You know, what you're saying is that helping out these other homes and houses is not important. So I'm not going to get into discussion, but I'm not going to sit quietly while, you know, you play as if I'm completely against small business. And that's not the case at all. I'm just trying to do right by the money that we have to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do to help everybody in the city.
I'm going to come in on it. I'm going to come in on it. I'm not saying that you don't have a concern. I was just saying, where is your biggest concern? They came up here for the small business. They weren't talking about the other one. And since you mentioned Second Harvest, let me tell you, I know about Second Harvest. I deal with them a lot. I have a small non-profit organization as well. I did not ask for the money. And when you talk about helping Second Harvest, I can tell you right now, I'm not taking anything from them. I support them. I wrote letters for them. I still help them get funding, the allocations. I know where they can get a lot of other fundings for as well. So it's not that I'm trying to take from them. No. They help a lot of people here in the city as well. But what I was saying was these people from the small businesses came up here And at this point, this is who we should have been concerned and focused on. I did not say you did not have a concern for them. I felt like you just had a maybe higher concern for someone else, and not the small business who came up here tonight.
Thank you. Council, any other comments? Put before you a motion to adjourn into executive session. I got a
Second.
motion and a second for personnel and for
Litigation.
legal matters. Legal matters and personnel. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, show of hands. Council, thank you. Everybody, thank you for your attendance tonight. Leadership Lounge, youth, thank